And a poem that I'm going to do in the middle of it is called Confident Uncertainty. So I'm going to expand on that concept. But it was my junior year of college, and it was Taco Tuesday at Moody Bible Institute. And if you don't learn anything else from me today, learn to never trust mass-produced Mexican food at a Bible college in the meat and potato Midwest. It's a bad idea. But every Tuesday they would make tacos in the cafeteria, and you'd always subject yourself to it, and you'd eat it, and everyone would always have the bubble guts afterwards, and and you just did it. It's what you did. Everybody ate it, and then everyone would complain about, oh, why did I eat that? So that was pretty much the weekly routine. And so it was one particular Tuesday, and I went, and man, as planned, I had the bubble guts, but it was particularly bad that Tuesday. I was like, oh. And I used the bathroom like 7-8 times. Gross. I know, it's not healthy. It was gross, and I was like, you know what? I probably caught some food poisoning, whatever. I'll be good, I'll sleep it off. It's a bug, it'll be done in a day or 2 or 3. So I didn't think nothing of it. So the next day, same thing. Next day, it went on the whole week. The next week, it went from like 7 to 8 times a day to like 10 to 12 times a day. And I'm like, whoa. This is not good. But I'll sleep it off. I'll get over it. It's just a bug, you know what I'm saying? I'm not too sick, whatever. And so I didn't go to the doctor or nothing. Fast forward a month later. I'm still using the bathroom like 10 times a day. But then I noticed that there was blood in the toilet. And that scared me. The blood ain't supposed to come out of there, you know what I'm saying? I was like, all right, maybe something serious is wrong with me. So I went to the doctor, and something serious was wrong. I actually had to fly home in the middle of the semester from the Midwest all the way back to Long Beach, and I had a colonoscopy done, and I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, an intestinal disease. I have internal bleeding and ulcers in my colon. That was not part of my plan for my life. I was healthy. I lifted weights in college. I was a student. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, I'm diagnosed with this disease which literally changes the way I live. It also changes the course of my life later for several reasons which I'll get into. But out of nowhere. And I take all kinds of medication. I take 12 pills a day. I take steroids. Everything's different. My second home is the hospital. Unexpected. Not written into my plans. But fast forward the next year to my senior year of college. I'm about to graduate, and I have really good plans for my life. Excellent ideas for what I want to do, think I'm going to do with my future. And Plan A was grad school. I had discovered in college my love for writing. I wasn't looking to pursue it in like a performing artist sense of like traveling and performing. I was just like wanting to grow my giftedness and my love for it and maybe be a teacher or something more stable that made more sense. So I said, you know what? I like creative writing, so I'll go to grad school and get a degree, get a master's degree in creative writing. That's a good plan. See, but the problem is, I didn't get in. I applied to 3 different grad school programs. I thought I had decent grades. I thought I had a nice portfolio, but I didn't get in. So, okay, well, I guess that's not happening. So that plan is out the window. So plan B was go to the Peace Corps. I was passionate about issues of justice and seeing that as a way to live out my faith in a really important part of the gospel that I think is ignored. So I was like, justice, yes, you know what? Can't go to grad school. I'm not just going to talk about this justice thing. I'm going to be about it. I'm going to join the Peace Corps. I'm going to move to the other side of the world and serve people and work with people in poverty. And yes, good plan. Good plan B, since plan A didn't work out. So I signed up for the Peace Corps, fill out all the applications, one interview away from hopping on a plane to the other side of the planet. And they said, oh, we noticed on your application you have a condition. I said, oh, well, yeah, I have ulcerative colitis. Oh, see, you probably don't want to join the Peace Corps. I mean, you can join, but you probably have to be stateside filing papers because, I mean, you'll get positioned somewhere that's really far from the type of medication and the hospitals that you need to stay healthy. We don't want to put you on the field. Dang. What the heck? This is not part of the plan. This isn't working out how I wanted it to. This is messing my life up. So plan A didn't work out because I didn't get into grad school. Plan B didn't work out because I have this condition, which was also not part of the plan that just came into my life the year before. So I'm like, all right, whatever. Plan C. I have a degree, communications major in communications, and I'm going to just move back home to Long Beach, find a job, and just work. Well, I moved back home, but I couldn't find a job. So here I was. The plan was to live with my parents just long enough to find a job and get an apartment. But I couldn't find a job. So I'm like, college degree, unemployed, living with my parents, and I am angry at God. This doesn't make any sense, God. I'm a good person, right? I went to college. I'm doing this. I'm trying to serve you. I wanted to go, do like missions through the Peace Corps and serve people, and you wouldn't let me do that, and you brought this into my life, and I'm tripping. I'm like, everything's going wrong. And it was at that point where I thought, in college, I started doing poetry and writing rap lyrics. But the thing is, you do not go to college to come home and tell your parents, hey, Mom, Dad, I think I'm going to try to be a rapper. No. See, they're like, that's why we sent you to college, so you wouldn't talk that foolishness. No. You're not doing that, right? But the thing was, nothing else was working out. And I had this passion, but it was so unrealistic to me. I was like, I'm not going to do that. But all of a sudden, when all these other doors were closing, I was like, you know what? If I pursue my art and it doesn't work, then I will be unemployed, living in my parents' house like I am right now. So I really have nothing to lose. It's not going to hurt anything. And so I did. I said, nothing else is working, might as well. And there's a lot more to the story that I don't have time to tell, but it wasn't like if you think you're going to pursue performing arts, you think, stay in LA or move somewhere in New York or something. But God took me on this strange journey up to Central Oregon to intern with the church that was about the arts. And it doesn't make any sense. The fact of the matter is, it led to a lot of different random things, and now here I am having the opportunity to travel around and share my art with people, and I love it, right? And I love where I'm at. But the thing is, I got here through so many disappointments. I thought I was a failure. I was doubting myself. I was doubting God. I was so frustrated because I had such good plans for my life, and they all fell through. And right now, I can look back retrospectively and be like, man, I see how God was just redirecting me, how he was closing those doors. But at the time, I thought, man, am I doing something wrong? What's the problem here? And I wasn't doing anything wrong. And because of that experience and to see how God used all those disappointments to get me where he wanted me to be, I began to trust him more. And now, as I continue to experience failure and disappointment in life, I don't get as bent out of shape about it as I used to, because I live in something I like to call confident uncertainty. And to illustrate this, I have this poem which I will share with you, and then we're going to jump in the Word, and I'm going to show you a few passages in Scripture so you know that I'm not making this stuff up. I really think this concept of confident uncertainty is what we're called to live in. Life. A nice, simple life. My dreams seemed quite attainable. No grandiose fantasies of fame. Just me, a wifey boo, a few children, and a steady paycheck is all I want. And I had a nice, simple life plan to ensure I would become the man I'm supposed to be. But there was one thing I forgot to factor in. Life. See, somehow in all my preparation, I forgot to prepare for the things you can't prepare for. Then all of a sudden, someone busts down my door like po-pos at a crack house, and next thing I know, I'm on the ground with my arms held behind my back, begging death not to murder me, because I was sure it was he who had come. But a voice cried out, "No, this is life, son! Life! right now. This is not part of the plan. And life laughed and said, who told you that you tell me what to do? I paused. And before I could respond, life answered, exactly. Now, what you up to? What am I up to? I was trying to live out my nice, simple life plan until someone named Life came in and started ruining my life. Ruining your life? I am your life. And I might not be what you expected, but difficult is not synonymous with destructive. I'm not ruining anything. And you might think your nice, simple plan got me all figured out, but I'm only nice sometimes. I'm definitely not simple. And good luck trying to plan for me. So before you start with the accusations, you better recognize who you're talking to. My name is Life. And you got me all riled up, but I'm on your side. So you can lie here arguing with me for the rest of me, or you can get up and we'll get out of here. I suggest you choose quickly because death is on his way and we ain't got time to waste. Oh, my bad, Life. No disrespect. But I got one question. Where are we going? Life grinned with confident uncertainty as he walked by faith toward the open door. Inhaling a deep breath of himself, he confessed, only God knows. Confident uncertainty. If you're anything like me, you might have good plans for your life. Well, in the book of James, he has something to say about people like us. And James says this in chapter 4, verse 13. Come now, you who say tomorrow, we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Therefore, whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. James says, look here, you who say today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. Let me bring this into our context so that it clicks a little more. James says, look here, you who say, in a few years, I will graduate from Baylor University, get a good job, work hard, and make a profit. Look here, you who say, next year or the following year, I will graduate from Baylor University, start a powerful ministry, and make a difference in the world. Look here, you who say, one day, I will do something great, something significant, something that matters one day in the future. I'm going to live out these awesome plans that I've made for myself. James says in verse 14, you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. See, plans are not wrong. Plans are good, but plans are not sure. What is your life? James asks. It's a vapor, a breath on a cold day, a beautiful swirling mist. As soon as it leaves your lips, you see it for a little time and then it vanishes. That is your life. It says, and if the Lord returns for all of us or just for you by death, I promise you, God will not be impressed with what you had on your life's to-do list. If you want your life to be significant, if you want to do great things, you better do it now. As James says, instead you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. A daily prayer. God, how do you want to use me right now? Yes, I can have plans and ideas for things that may or may not happen, but right now as a Baylor student, with the people around me, the students, the professors, the people who are hurting, how can I live out my calling right now instead of banking on a future that we have no control over? Do you know who you are in Christ Jesus? If the answer is yes, then stop stressing about your future. God has gifted you and wants to use you right now. And quite frankly, it doesn't really matter what happens in your future. I'll explain that later, but I mean that. It doesn't matter what happens in your future. I love how blunt Christ is with people who are like me, who stress about this. And he says, you know what? In Luke 12:25, which of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? In other words, worrying doesn't do anything. It doesn't change the situation at all. It just changes whether or not you're stressed out in it. You can not know something and be stressed, or you can just choose to not know and trust God. Be obedient and exist in that confident uncertainty. Maybe you're not stressed though. Maybe, like in James, you think you got it all figured out. Maybe you say, today or tomorrow, we're going to do this and buy and sell and make a trade. Well, you're wrong. You're wrong. Just because you believe that you know how it's going to go doesn't mean you actually know how it's going to go. You have no idea. You are healthy one day, and all of a sudden, you're diagnosed with something that completely changes the course of your life and prevents you from doing things. You are healthy one day, and all of a sudden, a person comes into your life, and all of a sudden, you're doing something completely different because you're walking with them. You don't know. You actually don't know, even if you think you do. And that's okay that you don't know. Because as I said before, it doesn't really matter what happens in your future. Now, I know that might sound offensive to some people. What do you mean it doesn't matter? God doesn't care about what happens in our future? No, that's not what I'm saying. In Psalm 1, it says this. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scoffers, but delights in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields fruit in its season, and its leaves do not wither. In all that he does, he prospers. Another translation says, and whatever he does, he prospers. If you delight in God's law, if you know and love his word, if you are obedient to how he calls us to live, then it doesn't matter what your future holds. Whatever you do will prosper. Now look, we need to understand what prosperity means, because there's a lot of bad theology that uses that word to mean something that's not biblical. It does not mean that things will always go like you planned. It does not mean that things will always go well. But this is what it does mean. The prophet Jeremiah uses this exact imagery in his book, but he expands on it a bit. So he uses the same imagery as in Psalm 1 of this tree planted by a stream of water and prospering at all times. But this is what Jeremiah says in Jeremiah 17:7. Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose trust is the Lord. He is like a tree planted by water that sends out its roots by the stream and does not fear when heat comes, for its leaves remain green, and it is not anxious in the year of drought. See, the prosperity in Psalm 1 is not talking about never enduring drought or hardship or famine or heat. It's not saying that everything will always go easy. It's saying that even when there is a drought and there is no rain from heaven and you are planted by the waters, you are deeply rooted in God and in his words, your roots can sustain you through the drought, pulling from the life source, just like a tree that is planted by water or a river can remain healthy and have green roots even if there's no rain for a long time. Why? Because its roots are so deep, it can pull from below. It can pull from the life source below, from the waters beneath. That's what it's saying. So the point is not you're going to prosper and everything's always going to go good. It's even when there is a famine, you're planted by a river. And that river is what? Blessed is the man who delights in the law of the Lord. That river, that life source is God and his law. And if you're planted in that, it doesn't matter how many famines and hardships come into your life. You can pull life, and you can have vitality, and you can prosper when everyone else around you who isn't planted in the Word of God is withering. So the point is, even if your life doesn't go as planned, even if there is times of famine, even if there is drought, you can prosper like Joseph, who is in prison for a crime he didn't commit. He prospered. He became the top of the bottom, the most trusted inmate. He won favor with the prison guard. He prospered in a low place. Like Daniel, whose home was destroyed by an outside empire. He was carried away as a slave, but he delighted in God's law, and he prospered during Babylonian captivity. He became an advisor to the king of Babylon while a slave. He prospered in the hardship. Prospering does not mean being on top, but it means maintaining your zeal in the drought when you're on the bottom. It's continuing to trust God when everything is going wrong. It's having roots so deep that people will look at you and say, "How are you so healthy in this famine?" I'm rooted by the river. I'm rooted in the life source. Stop stressing about your life. Even if your worst fears come true, you can prosper in those situations. So many things that I've endured with my health and other things in my life, had you told me beforehand that these things were going to happen, I'd have been like, "Oh, there's no way I can survive that. There's no way." Life goes on. You do. Prosper in your unemployment if that's where you're at. You'll have a lot of time on your hands. How can you use it and serve God in ways that you might not be able to later? How can you invest in friendships and give yourself to people in that unemployment? If it's not due to laziness or sin, then there's no shame in it. So prosper in it, right? Prosper in your uncertainty. Have peace. Be an example to the dozens of other people around you that are also uncertain and scared to death. Have peace. Serve God in whatever immediate ways you can. Not being worried about your future. Be like James instructs us to be when he says, ask God what you can do here and now in that moment. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. God, in this hard place, how do you want me to live? I'll close with this. The worry sometimes comes from good motives. As Christians, we want to please God, right? We're obsessed with his will for our life. Everyone knows that phrase, God, what is your will? We pray that, we think that, people preach about it. God, what is your will for my life? We're obsessed with it. And if God ever speaks clearly and says, this is my will for your life, I trust that you are wise enough to obey it, right? And some Christians have those experiences. Some people say, man, I heard God tell me to do this, and that's what I did. That's great. I've never, ever, ever experienced that. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm saying for me, that's not how God has communicated with me. So if you're like me, well, what do you do then? How do we discern God's will? Well, first of all, I want to say God's will is kind of plain for all Christians and the same. And that is, live out the gospel. No matter what situation you're in, no matter where you're at, there's opportunities to serve. In your dorm rooms, you are surrounded by people hurting. Right here at this school, people in need, physically, emotionally. There are always opportunities to live out the gospel. That is always God's will for your life. But beyond that, I want to repeat what someone said to me when I was in college. I don't remember who he was, but he came and he spoke in chapel. I don't remember anything else he said, but I remember him saying this. He said, love God and do what you want. That's what he said. It's that simple. If you are delighting in God's law, if you're rooted in it, if you are working towards good things as made clear in his word, then do whatever the heck you want. Some of it will work. A lot of it will not work. You will fail. Failure is not a sin. Sin is sin. But if you have been obedient to the person that God has called us to be, and you tried something and it didn't work, there's no shame in that. Love God and do what you want. You will fail, so live free and hold all of your plans with an open palm knowing that at any moment God could come and redirect you and change stuff around, and that's okay. Continue to live in confident uncertainty. And remember Proverbs 16:9, which says, "The heart of a man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps." Thank you.
Thanks, Micah. I appreciate it.